Hey you! Yes, you, watching this video. Do you want to own a piece of Scribbler? Only not a lock of hair or blood or flesh or anything else that will get you in trouble with the law? Well, now you can, with t-shirts, hoodies, tote bags and mugs featuring Obab Scribbler at her Teespring store. You know you want to. I shall now stop talking in third person and send you on to the video. Be lovely to each other and enjoy the show!
Ponytails. Read by Scribbler.
Love, Lillium.
The frustrated, pale blue unicorn tossed the crumpled up letter in the trash.
Why is this so difficult?
She slammed her head on the desk with a resounding thud and a pained groan.
Why can't I just kick my problem away?
Her eyes locked onto the photos hanging on the wall above her desk. Of her friends in the military academy. Of her home in Canterlot. Of all the silly adventures she went on back home. And the stallion she secretly longed for.
Shining,
she whispered. Her cheeks turned bright red at the thoughts racing through her mind, which was swiftly followed by another head slam on the desk.
Ow!
She was going to break something in her brain at this rate. Of course, she'd taken enough blows to the head where it probably wouldn't do too much damage. That hit must have jogged something in her memory.
Wait, wasn't there something I was supposed to do today?
Some light knocks outside her door interrupted her thoughts. It would have to wait.
In a sec!
She levitated the trash bin full of discarded letters and hid them under her desk. She was hoping the chair and the shadow cast by the desk would be enough camouflage. Otherwise, she probably would have incinerated the contents, but she really didn't have the time. Plus, the last time she did that, her superiors yelled at her and threatened a court-martial, so that was out. The door opened to reveal a grey Pegasus mare with a big grin on her face, but her smile quickly faded when she saw Lillium standing idly in the middle of the room.
What are you doing here?
Well, that was a stupid question.
Grace, it's my room. I live here. What are you doing here?
Her eye twitched, and then she put on a forced smile.
Oh, nothing. I just thought I'd drop in to see how my fellow soldier and longtime best friend was doing. Just enjoying herself in here.
She just let herself in, walking right up by Lilium and examining the contents of the room. Lilium raised an eyebrow suspiciously.
Yeah?
She knew that sarcastic tone Grace was using, but for the life of her, Lilium couldn't really understand why Grace was beating around the bush.
Just tell me already!
As Grace paced around the room, she couldn't help but stare at the photos on the wall.
Oh, it's just, I thought that after you aced your arcane combat tests, you promised yourself you would do something.
She knew exactly what Grace was referring to, and she knew she was in for a lecture.
Something important to you. Something that's been bugging you for ages.
Okay, stop. I get it.
She grudgingly brought the trash bin out from under her desk.
I promised myself that if I passed my tests, then I would confess to Shining Armour. I know that.
She trailed off, eyeing her failed attempts at a love letter with embarrassment. If it were anyone other than Grace looking into her failed attempts at writing down her true feelings, then she wouldn't be held responsible for her actions. Plus, they'd never find the body.
If you know, then just get it over with. Get out there and tell him.
It's not that simple. I'm no good with this, girly emotions and stuff. I'm more used to punching out my problems.
There was one other reason why she couldn't confess.
Because Shining already...
But she wasn't going to tell Grace that.
Look, I just don't want to be rejected and then end up losing someone so important to me.
It was half a lie. While she was indeed afraid of being rejected, Lillium was not the type to let her fear alone stop her from doing something.
Besides, we're both in the equestrian military. Our jobs don't exactly give a lot of time for romance and frilly frou-frou girly stuff like that. And I'm not exactly the best mare for him, and...
Stop. You just keep coming up with an excuse after excuse about why you can't. And you know what? I agree with you. You're kind of pathetic, Lillium.
Grace raised a hoof to Lillium's mouth.
You're not girly. You're not particularly cute. You're not a very good soldier. You're blunt, mean, violent, vulgar.
Okay, I get it. I suck.
Lillium's self-esteem couldn't take another hit from Grace's barrage of insults.
Dear Celestial, what do I have going for me?
But despite all that, you're loyal to a fault. You try your best to help your friends. You're honest and don't have a deceptive bone in your body. You're selfless, and while you're not fashion model cute, you do have your own charm. You're a lot of things, Lillium, but one thing you aren't is a bad pony.
Grace explained while examining the crumpled up love letters.
Thanks?
Lillium didn't exactly know how to feel about the backhanded compliments.
What are you doing?
She asked as Grace picked through the trash bin filled with nothing but crumpled up love letters that she hated.
But you really suck at writing, you know that?
And there's the insults again. It was kind of starting to piss her off.
Yes, I get it.
She stamped her hoofs down in indignation.
I suck at romance. What do you want from me?
Grace turned her head and looked directly into Lillium's bright purple eyes.
The first thing you're going to do is stop obsessing over what you're going to say. Then you're going to march down to Shining Armor's room and just tell him how you feel.
Why didn't Grace get that it wasn't that easy for Lillium?
But it's not that easy.
Yes, it is. Right now, you're your own worst enemy. You're making too big of a deal out of it. Just get it over with. And I know you're going to say, what if he rejects me? That's always a chance with confessions. But I believe it's better if you know for certain, rather than spend years wondering, what if?
Lillium was speechless. She levitated the picture of Shining Armour from her wall of photos over to her side.
What would you do?
Of course, she knew the answer to that. She sighed.
You're right.
She quietly acknowledged.
I'm not gonna run from this. I promised myself, and I do want to know. I want to know so badly that it's eating away at me. And if I don't get my answer, then I might just explode. Dear Celestia, what am I doing here?
And with that, Lillium raced out of her room with the cry of,
Go get him, girl!
on her tail.
Shining Armour, I want to see you. I want to tell you.
A small filly bit back her tears. It was Hearts and Hooves Day, and while everyone in her class was getting presents and cards and sweets, she had received something. A surprise for someone like her, who didn't really have any real friends. She eagerly opened the contents, but it contained something that no filly should receive. Someone had carefully decorated a pretty little card for her. It put a smile on her face to know that someone actually cared about her. However, when she opened it, all she found was a horrible, cruel joke that still hurt her to remember. She'd excused herself and went to cry under the stairs where no one could see her.
Shining, I don't think you can ever understand just how much you mean to me.
As the small filly fought back the urge to cry out right there, a colt's voice spoke up.
Hey, what are you doing down here?
She eyed the white-coated unicorn and glared at him.
None of your business.
She turned away from him. She knew he was still there. She swished her tail in a shooing motion.
Just leave me alone, alright?
She didn't want to see anyone right now. She just wanted to kick someone real hard in the face. And if this stupid colt didn't leave her alone right now, then she wouldn't be held responsible for... A small little box was dropped next to her. It was wrapped in a nice little red bow.
Wanna share?
The colt asked while levitating a saddlebag of sweets.
Fine,
she whispered, while turning her head away from him. She really didn't want him to see the deep red blush on her face, or hear how loud her heart was thumping. Could he even hear that?
I think when you said that to me, I was already in love with you. But maybe I didn't realize it at the time, or maybe my love is something that just grew over time? Either way.
Memories of her life, of times when Shining was sad and she was there to comfort him, when they'd hang out at each other's houses, when they'd study for big tests, when they got their cutie marks. They were practically a couple already, but Lillium knew of her, Cadence. She saw the way Shining looked at her, and it would hurt her just a little bit knowing that Shining would never look at Lillium that way.
I don't know when I started to resent her.
It was during her adolescent years. With a group of friends, they all went to an amusement park in Philadelphia, and it was there that Lillium and Cadence had been paired together on the Ferris wheel. They'd reached the very top, but it stalled.
Can I ask you something?
Cadence asked shyly.
Shoot, it's not like we have anything better to do.
Honestly, Lillium would rather have kept her interactions with Cadence to a minimum, but in this case, it was unavoidable. She may as well humor her.
It's about shining armor. Do you think he likes me?
Lillium knew exactly what she was asking, but she chose to feign innocence.
Well, of course he likes you. He likes everyone.
She'd never know Shining Armor to be a pony to hate others, that's for sure.
No, I mean, do you think he likes me?
Oh, well, I could have said anything, but I instead chose to be evasive. Maybe I should have lied to her. No, I couldn't do that. I'm a lot of things, but a liar I am not. And so we talked. We talked about Shining Armor a lot. Maybe I should have been more forward about how I felt about him. Would it have mattered? There was a reason I never told Shining Armor how much I loved him.
It was some time after they both got accepted into Equestrian Military Academy. What should have been a day for celebration and parties was instead the day when he told Lillium that he was in love. But it wasn't with her. It was with Cadence. Years later, and the scar in her heart still hurt more than she realized. Things had never truly been the same for them. Time that he'd have normally spent with Lillium were instead spent with Cadence. She'd convince herself that she'd eventually get over him, that it was pointless to hope for anything more. And she even tried to push the two ponies into being a real couple, as opposed to the ponies who just made googly eyes at each other so she would stop feeling that hole in her heart whenever she saw him. Those were the times that hurt her the worst, when she had to force a smile. She stood in front of Shining Armor's door, but she didn't try to open it just yet. She took a deep breath, steadying her nerves. She pressed her hoof to the door, but she wouldn't move. The fear was taking hold of her motor skills. She nearly turned around and walked back, but that's when Grace's words rang in her ear. She bit her lip. Her internal battle was just getting worse and worse. Stay or go, stay or go, stay or go.
Lilium?
Shining Armor's voice caught her off guard.
Hey, I haven't seen you in a while. What's up?
Lillium leaned against the wall, feigning coolness.
Oh, I just like hanging around places like this.
In front of my room?
Hey, this place has a really great view.
It was an empty hallway with maybe one potted plant in the corner.
Someone should probably water that thing. It's starting to wilt.
Uh-huh.
Shining rolled his eyes, and then a smile crossed his face.
Well, while you're here, come on in. There's something I want to show you. It'd be really great if I can get your opinion on it.
Oh?
Well, this is a surprise. She'd expected to have to coax him out of the room, but this works too. Maybe this whole confession thing would be easier than she thought. Or maybe Shining was actually going to confess to her. The thought of it sent her heart to flutter for about 8 seconds before it dropped back to normal levels.
Wait, no, that can't be it. Probably just needs my opinion on a flower or something. My parents did run a flower shop back in Canterlot, after all.
You mind closing the door?
Shining asked while rummaging around the saddlebag next to his bed.
Sure.
She telekinetically closed the door behind her, then resumed her pacing, her mind abuzz about what Shining Armor wanted to talk to her about. She noticed Shining's wall of photos above his desk, just like hers. It brought a kind of warmth to her heart and a smile to her face as she examined the pictures, remembering when they were taken, and then her eyes locked on the picture of them as fools, hugging, with Lillium acting like she hated the hug, but she'd secretly hoped that hug would last forever. She saw how well cared for the picture was, and that just gave her the kick in the flank she needed.
Okay, I'm gonna do it before I lose my nerve.
She wheeled around.
Shy...
He was already standing there, holding the letter in his telekinetic grip, with a very elegant stationery and a few words she could read.
Oh, Celestia, that's a love letter.
Her heart fluttered. Shining was presenting it to her?
Shining,
She could feel another smile coming on.
I love you, Shining. Just say it, just say it.
I'm hoping I can get your opinion on this letter to Cadence.
And suddenly all that confidence just drained away in 8 seconds flat.
Letter to Cadence.
She felt her hooves shaking and a hollow pit forming in her chest.
Don't cry. Don't you dare cry.
She cleared her throat.
Yeah, of course, I can, but, can you, I don't know, step out for a second? It's, really uncool to read these girly things in front of ponies.
Shining's eyes lit up.
Oh, I got an idea. I'll stand outside my door, and then you read the letter as if you're saying it to me. That way I can kind of understand how it might sound to someone.
There was no way she could refuse. Shining had already left the room. Lillium sighed as she stared at the contents. Her heart was breaking. So much. It hurt 1,000 times worse than that time Shining Armour had told her how he felt about Cadence.
I shouldn't have stepped outside today.
She sat at the door as she lifted the letter to eye level.
Might as well get this over with. Dear Cadence, do you remember when we first met? It was in the spring. Mom and Dad had told me that Twilight needed a full sitter. Naturally, I volunteered, but they told me that they needed someone who wasn't so busy with extracurriculars, and that's when they introduced you to me. A friend of the family referred you to us, and they'd been talking with you for several days without my knowledge. Do you remember how annoyed I looked? It was like my family thought I wasn't mature enough to watch Twilight. I don't really blame them. We did get into plenty of trouble before we met you.
During the winter was when Lillium first met Twilight Sparkle. Shining had brought her in to warm up from the sudden snowstorm. It was when Shining was making hot cocoa that Lillium first locked eyes with Twilight Sparkle. And then Twilight just went back to burying her face in the very complicated book she was reading. Wasn't the most memorable introduction, but Lillium had tried to talk about the book with Twilight, only to have the contents just fly over her head.
Every school day, I'd come home 2 hours late and you'd be there with Twilight. I was shocked, to say the least. Twilight's never been a very social filly, so to see her laughing so happily with someone who wasn't me, well, that just put a smile on my face. It was nice to know that Twilight had a friend outside me and our parents. Still can't believe she caught the eye of Princess Celestia. Thinking on it now, I think it was those moments we spent together just hanging out with Twilight when I started to notice you. Not just as a friend and Twilight's full sitter, but as a mare who I really cared for more than anyone.
Those words cut into her like a knife, but she kept reading.
For years I did nothing about these feelings. I just watched you from afar, tried to be a friend to you, and enjoyed this little game of house that the three of us shared. It wasn't until I started talking about these feelings to my best friend Lillium that my little crush started to turn into something more. Lillium always listened to me. She was one of the few ponies I could really talk to. I couldn't talk to any of the guys, they'd call me a wuss. I couldn't tell Twilight, it was all big pony stuff. Honestly, I don't think I could have come to this conclusion without Lilium's support.
Tears were starting to well up.
Stop it. Damn it, don't you dare cry. I'm not gonna beat around the bush anymore. I love you, Cadence. I may not be the strongest pony, the smartest, the most handsome, but my feelings for you will never change. Stop it. And even if you don't feel the same way about me, then that's fine. I just wanted you to know how I really felt. It's been eating away at me for years, and I just wanted you to know the truth. Now that it's out in the open, I feel like a great weight has lifted off my shoulders. So if you want to give us a chance, then please let me know. Because I don't want to just tell you in a letter. I want to tell you just how much I love you and how much you mean to me, face to face. Love, Shining Armour.
She was silent for a few minutes, her face buried in her forelegs, muttering little muffled cries, and fighting back the tears with every fibre of her being.
I am not going to cry. I will not cry.
She needed to be strong. She refused to let Shining see her in this pathetic state.
Lilium, you went quiet at the end. It's bad, isn't it? I'm no good with that sappy stuff. Maybe I should just...
No, it's fine. It's perfect as it is.
Lillium wasn't the best judge of love letters, having spent many nights trying to come up with the best one she could, but she could just feel the overwhelming love from each word that Shining had for Cadence. But that love was a double-edged sword for Lillium, because each word was like a dagger in her heart.
Don't change it, just send it.
She wanted this to be over with as soon as possible, and she definitely didn't want to read another love letter meant for someone who wasn't her.
Really? That's great.
His excitement was a perfect opposite to how she felt.
Then can you come with me to the mailroom? I think I'll lose my nerve if I go alone.
She wiped the tears forming at the edge of her eyes.
Of course.
She needed to take a page out of Grace's book and hide her emotions behind a mask.
What's a best friend for?
Lillium had chosen to take the scenic route to the mailroom. Shining didn't seem to mind. Maybe she was hoping that he'd lose his nerve, and then she'd be able to confess her feelings to him, or maybe she was just prolonging the inevitable. She wasn't entirely sure. She tried to enjoy the conversation, but it was different now. It didn't feel the same. Already their friendship was different.
So, you really love Cadence?
Yeah.
He said without delay.
I think this is real. I mean, it has to be real, right?
She didn't want to answer that, but she had to.
Yeah, it has to be.
She faked enthusiasm. She prayed to Celestia that this was all just one terrible nightmare and that she'd wake up from any moment now.
You know, I really have to thank you for this.
Please don't.
I mean, if you weren't around to talk to and encourage me, then I don't know if I ever would have worked up the courage. Heck, I don't even know if Cadence really feels the same way about me. But I want to try. I want to try to make it work. And I want to be the kind of stallion worthy for a princess.
His words held no deceit and no doubts. He really believed that he could make it work with Cadence.
And if she doesn't feel the same way, well, at least I'll know that I gave it my best shot. Better than not knowing, right?
She couldn't take it anymore. She had to say it. Right here, right now. Otherwise, she'd just break down into a pathetic little sad sack right there and then.
Shining, listen. There's something
Shining, thanks, Celestia. Look, I need your help.
A worried stallion came barreling down the hallway.
Can it wait? I'm a little busy.
No, it can't wait. You're the only one who can help me with this. Come on, bro. I need you. I'm pulling out the friend card. It's that serious.
The stallion pulled out what looked like a laminated index card with the words, "Friendship card, good for one free favor, as long as it's not something illegal," written in bold, bright red colours.
Whoa, really?
Shining looked at Lillium, then back to the stallion, and then to Lillium again. He passed his saddlebag over to Lillium.
Can you go ahead and deliver this to the mailroom? I think this is gonna take a while, and I might lose my nerve. So, if you can just give it to the mailroom ponies, it'll be a huge favor to me. I'll meet up with you later, and we'll get something to eat or whatever.
What? Shining, wait,
It was too late. He was already gone.
Damn it!
She bucked the nearby wall in frustration, hard. She had just gotten up the courage. She was so close. Just a few more seconds and she would have...
Ow!
Her second kick broke a hole in the wall. She eyed the saddlebag with nothing but contempt.
If only this letter didn't exist.
And then she started to think.
You know, I could lose the letter.
Yeah, she could, couldn't she? All she had to do was take the letter and burn it. Shining would never question her, or better yet, change the address so that it gets sent somewhere else in case the mail ponies say they never received it. It wouldn't be that difficult to cover up all the routes leading to her. She could really get away with it, if she put her mind to it.
Yeah, I'm the one who's known him longer. I'm the one who's been there for him. I'm the one who should be at the mayor at his side. It should be me!
She took the letter out of the saddlebag with her telekinetic grip, the gears in her mind working to come up with a brilliant plan. Somewhere inside her, she felt this was wrong, that she wasn't this kind of pony. Well, that side of her can go right to hell. She was not about to lose to some princess who probably only liked him because of some stupid reason.
Maybe I'll rewrite it. Make it so Cadence will never want to speak to Shining Armour again. He'll be so distraught, and then I can swoop in and...
She froze when she caught a glimpse of something else in Shining Armour's saddlebag. She lifted it up with her magic and gazed upon a picture of her, Shining Armour, Twilight Sparkle, Cadence, Grace, and their other friends. The longer she stared at the picture, the more she realized what she was about to do.
No.
She looked down at her hooves. She grew horrified at what she had been thinking of doing.
No, I can't do that.
She had seen such an ugly side of herself, a side that was so unlike her in every way. What had she been thinking?
You're a lot of things, Lillium, but one thing you aren't is a bad pony.
I'm not a bad pony.
She gathered up Shining Armour's belongings in the saddlebag, and then she started putting one hoof in front of the other, which then turned into a light trot, and then a full-speed gallop. The little voice in the back of her head told her she was making a big mistake, but she ignored it.
I'm not a bad pony.
Shining Armour was not in love with her. She can't force him to love her with underhanded tricks, and she can't just tear them apart because she wants to be with him.
I'm not a bad pony.
There was a nice little hill on the academy grounds. It was quiet, peaceful, and had a great view of the horizon. But she wasn't there to watch the beautiful scenery laid out before her. She was there because hardly anyone ever walked by. It was the perfect place to be alone. She never went back to her room that day. Grace was there, and she didn't really want to have to trot back to her friend who gave her so much encouragement and tell her just how badly she screwed up. She spent all of yesterday in a depressed daze wandering around and avoiding the ponies in the academy, and now she had wound up here to stare into the twilight sky. She needed to just let out for a little while, and then she'd make her way back to her room wearing a mask of happiness. She sniffled and wiped her snot away. Was it okay to cry now? She hardly ever cried. She needed to put on the strong facade around others, but maybe just a little bit was fine. She was just about to let it run loose when...
Lillium?
His voice stopped her cold.
Shining?
She hastily wiped the tears that had been forming.
What are you doing here?
Well, I was looking for you to...
His voice trailed off as he stared intently into her eyes.
Lillium, are you okay?
What? Who, me? Yeah, I'm just fine. Never better. I'm one of Equestria's best arcane combat specialists. I've got fans and rivals. You know, the usual, and...
Shining suddenly put his hooves on her shoulders and turned her to him.
Lillium, you're not fine.
He saw right through her in an instant. Where was that magnificent intuition just a little while ago?
Talk to me. I'm your friend. You can tell me anything.
No, she really didn't want to tell him this. But there was no way he was going to let this go.
You really want to know? Fine.
She brushed his hooves off her shoulders. She turned her back to him and sighed.
See, there's this stallion that I've always really liked. Loved.
Well, that's great, Lillium.
But he's...
She needed to choose her next words carefully. To heck with it. She wasn't a great liar anyways.
He's in love with someone else. Actually, he'll never love me. At all. I recently had to watch him confess his love to the mare of his dreams. They look great together, and I know they'll have a happy future, but still, it's hard to just tell my heart to stop feeling like this. So, I don't really know what to do anymore.
Shining Armour was silent for a while. He turned Lithium around and brought her into a tight hug.
I'm sorry.
What was he apologizing for? Had he figured out who the stallion in her story was?
I don't know what I can say to fix your broken heart. Any stallion would be lucky to have you as a mare friend, so...
It's okay.
She wrapped her hooves around him and hugged him back, burying her face into his shoulder.
Just let me stay like this for a while.
She cried. She really cried. Not just let out a few little teardrops, but she was bawling like Philly as she hugged him. She knew that the moment this hug stopped, then she'd have to give up her love. The moment she let go, then that would be the end of this chapter. She wished it could last forever, just like she wished that hug they shared when they were fools would last forever. However, she knew it couldn't. Time had to keep moving forward. Every story needed an end. She watched as the sun rose, washing her old self away. Tears were still streaming down her face, but now a smile spread across her face. A sad, sorrowful smile of farewell. Yes, while every story needed to end, hers was not over. This was just the end of one chapter in the life of the unicorn soldier, known as Lillium.